MMA Rants and Raves, Daniel Cormier versus John Jones 2 for the undisputed UFC Light Heavyweight Championship of the world. Guys, let's talk about this fight. Now, I know this fight hasn't been scheduled yet, but it looks like these two guys are on a collision course to face each other. And it seems like it's going to eventually happen. You could really kind of predict this fight a little bit easier. They've both faced a very significant, very dangerous opponent that seems to have, well, I wouldn't say their number because he didn't defeat them, but he was their toughest fight in which they had to go to a decision, and that's Alexander Gustafson. And I think it's a good way to measure what these guys can do against a very large, very skilled, very powerful, dangerous opponent in Alexander Gustafson. And what I noticed in both of the fights is that Jones uses his size and he bullies people. He just has this reach advantage and he is always bigger than his opponent, except for when he faced Gustafson. He was actually looking up at this guy for the first time in his career. He was standing up, he was looking up at his opponent. Gustafson is enormous. He's just an enormous man, very big, and very strong, powerful, and very skilled. Cormier is like a polar opposite of Gustafson. He's much shorter. He doesn't have the reach. He doesn't look that imposing, and he's just a different type of fighter. He relies heavily on his wrestling base, and of course his striking, which is really good, and it's gotten better and better. And the other thing is his granite jaw. That's a guy who's been smashed really hard, and he just keeps coming at you, no matter what you hit him with. That knee that Gustafson threw at him, it looked like he was going to be finished. The referee was standing over there, and I said, oh my goodness, this thing looks like it's going to end, and somehow he comes back. I don't want to get too much into that fight, but Gustafson was too much on his bicycle. I didn't understand how you could lose a clinch battle with a guy who's much shorter than you are, especially when you're showing that your takedown defense is pretty darn good. Gustafson, incredible in that fight. He was actually the only guy that had his opponent in danger. That's why I thought it would have been interesting if he would have got the decision, to win that fight, because I understand that it's a point system and you have to look at it round by round, but you also have to look at which guy had each other in the most danger during the fight. Gustafson was never in danger of losing. Cormier was badly hurt. It was Gustafson that had that dominant moment. He had the only dominant moment in the fight. And of course, if you watch Gustafson's fight against Jones, he had Jones more hurt than he had Gustafson hurt. And it was the toughest fight for Jones. Like I said, he faces a guy that's that big, that strong, and that skilled. You can't bully a guy who's bigger than he is. That's exactly what happened. I thought Gustafson won that fight. The point is, it was close, but Gustafson fought very well. If you look at Gustafson as a measurement, because that's the only guy you could really look at, you can see that Jones has the number of his opponents if he faces a guy who's a lot smaller than he is. And he's facing a guy who's much shorter, who has a big reach disadvantage. And if Jones is mentally and physically in this fight, when and if they eventually fight, I think it's going to be a repeat of the same thing. I think likely it will go 5 rounds. Cormier is incredibly tough. He can take a lot of punishment. And Jones can just use his reach to keep on the outside. And the most impressive thing is that Jones is just a better wrestler. Well, in the light heavyweight division, that is. I don't know about another division. I know Cormier fought at heavyweight. Maybe that's a factor, because Jones was just spinning him around when they were against the cage. He was using his strength advantage. And of course, also technique. I guess Jones is an underrated wrestler. I know he's a good wrestler, but who thought he was going to be able to out-wrestle Cormier? No one has out-wrestled Cormier prior to that fight. And I think there were guys with higher credentials as far as wrestling is concerned than Jones. Look at Josh Barnett. He was able to out-wrestle Josh Barnett, and that's a very big, strong heavyweight and a very skilled wrestler. So, if Jones is a better wrestler as a light heavyweight fighting Cormier, and he's able to use his striking, his reach, and also a very tough guy. Jones himself also has a granite chin. I mean, no one has been able to stop him, and he had to face adversity. He's been hit hard several times in some of his fights, especially the fight against Gustafson. You know, he was really battered at the end of that fight. In conclusion, if you have two very tough guys that have granite chins, and you have one guy who's the better wrestler at light heavyweight, and he has a huge reach advantage, so he's able to outpoint his opponent in the striking, then the reality is, unless either of these guys have gotten better than they were, I guess Jones can get better. I don't know about Cormier. I mean, he's such a high-level wrestler. Can he become an even better wrestler than he is now? I mean, I don't know. I mean, he is older than Jones. I don't know how much more wrestling technique he can learn in order to be more effective than his last fight, but it's likely that the same thing may happen, that these two guys, if they fight again, that Jones will be able to outpoint them once again. And that is if he's physically and mentally still there. I don't know what the deal is with him, but if he comes back as the same John Jones, you know, not any worse, not any better, my prediction is that Jones is going to win. So if and when they do fight, I'm going to make a prediction that Jones is going to win this fight. So I would like to know what you think about this potential fight coming up, if you think it's going to happen. So please leave your comments, please subscribe, please like up this video, and thank you for tuning in.